everybody. It's Thursday. It's demo day here at Now You're Cooking. Tonight we have Chris Toy, and he's going to be making a lovely stir fry from one of his 5 books. You can now deal a hand of cards with these. And number 6 has just been signed. Yep. So there'll be a new one out pretty soon. Next week we're going to be making lobster thermidor, and we're going to have Meg Barker from Embark Tours here, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the history of Bath while we're cooking. And then the week after that we're doing a really nice summer trifle, and if you have been paying attention you'll see a beautiful photo of one that Heather made yesterday. It looks really good and it's going to be delicious. But for tonight, Chris is going to go ahead with the stir fry.
Yeah, we'll do the main dish and then we'll have the trifle later.
Sounds good. Trifle for dessert.
So, hello, welcome, and tonight's dish is actually from this book, and this is the 5th in my series, and so it will be a stir fry. So let's get started, and I think we can do this in under a half hour. So let's give it a try, rice and all. So we're going to start off. We're going to make some rice, and by the time we are done, the rice will be done, so it doesn't have to be a long process. So I'm just going to use some nice jasmine rice, and if you're the measuring type, you'd measure like 1/4 to 1/3 cup of raw rice per person. There we go. And what we'll do is we'll just put some water in this. And I'm cheating a little bit because I'm using hot water, but you can use hot water right from the tap if you want. And you want to put in enough water so that when you touch the top of the rice, it just covers the first joint of your index finger. So just like that. That's hot water. So let's not put it there. All right. So that's touching the top of the rice, not the bottom of the pot. And we will put that on high, and we're going to bring that to a boil. And as soon as that boils, we'll put it on low, and 15 minutes after that, we'll shut it off, and it will basically hold for, half an hour, 45 minutes. So it's pretty flexible. I was taught that it's better to, bring the rice to a boil with the cover on. Some people are nervous about that, so they'll buy like a glass top so they can see. You could also, although it's not, you won't get as fluffy rice, what you can do is you can bring it to a boil without the cover, then cover it and put it to low. That's if you're kind of concerned about losing track of it and it boiling over, that kind of thing. Obviously with gas, if it starts to boil, you have instant control. If you have electric, the thing to remember is not to panic if it starts to boil over. Just slide it off the burner, put it on low, wait a couple seconds, and then put it back on. After you've turned it down to low, do not take the cover off because it's the steam that cooks the rice. So we're going to let that do its thing. So 5-spice chicken is what we're going to do tonight, and we're going to, the main flavor ingredient is Chinese 5-spice powder, which is really a type of, it's Chinese, the Chinese version of curry, and it represents the 5 flavors of Chinese cooking, which would be sweet, sour, pungent, bitter, and salty. The active ingredient, the main flavor ingredient is star anise. So it has a kind of a licoricey flavor. So we've got, look at that, it's boiling. We're not going to panic. We're going to turn that down to low. There we go. Wait a second. There we go. All right. That's good. So we'll look at that in a minute. So we're going to be using thin sliced chicken thighs. I like to use chicken thighs because thighs have more fat in them than the breast. And as I always like to say, FAT is an acronym. It stands for flavor and taste. So chicken thighs. And when you slice those up, you want to slice them against the grain, across the grain, so that the muscle strands are very short, which is what makes it tender. You also want to make sure that the chicken and all the other ingredients actually are close to room temperature. Because if you put in frozen food or really cold food into a wok to stir fry, you'll cool everything down and you'll be sauteing rather than stir frying. So let's, we're going to put in a tablespoon, if you're the measuring type. I'm usually not, but people get nervous. All right, so a tablespoon of the 5-spice powder. Smells great. And of course, if you love it, add maybe half a tablespoon more. If you would like a lighter flavor, you can change that as well. We're going to put in some soy sauce. There we go. And this process that we're doing is called velveting. And what velveting does, it's kind of a quick marinade and a rub that will also create a glaze. What I'm putting on now is some mirin or rice wine. And if you don't have mirin, you can use sherry. And there's a Chinese cooking wine that you can use as well. And let's put in some honey. And if you don't have honey, maple syrup works really well, as does molasses and brown sugar. And so the velveting piece that happens here is the cornstarch that we'll be using. So we'll put in a tablespoon of cornstarch, just like that. And we're going to just mix this in. So this is not a long marinating process, but we do want to mix that in. If you really want to mix it in fast. What's really effective is to put all of this into a Ziploc bag, and then you can actually massage it and get everything really mixed in here. But this will work just fine. I'm going to mix this until all of the cornstarch is in there. All right. And then we'll just set that aside. All right. I'll just put that there. So the thing about stir frying is you want to use what's called a hot wok and cool oil, not cold oil, but room temperature oil. The kind of oil that you want to use is a high temperature oil. So things like a peanut oil or a canola oil, corn oil will actually work well. Olive oil can work as well. However, remember, olive oil has a stronger flavor. But if you like olive oil, by all means use it. The best oil to use is avocado oil, because avocado oil can get up over 500 degrees, which is awesome for stir frying, before it starts to break down and smoke. The other oils that I mentioned, they're going to start breaking down between 350 and 375 degrees. So avocado oil up at 500 degrees, you can imagine, is a significantly higher temperature. And that's really what you want, is you want to get that, that searing temperature. So that's what we'll be using when we go to stir fry. So when you stir fry, the timing comes down literally to seconds, which means you have to have everything ready. You can't go and look for something or try to prep something. As a rule, when you stir fry, you want to have everything ready. So let's go through what we're going to get ready here. And the order matters. So the first thing we want to prepare is what's called our aromatics. And the two aromatics that we'll be using in this stir fry is going to be fresh garlic and fresh ginger. And we'll just peel this nice fresh garlic. You can use there's some bottled garlic and ginger that you can use, and those are fine. Those are fine. They're not as good as the fresh. And what I'm doing is I'm just going to kind of bruise that a little bit just to get the paper off. There we go. And look at this, we got this big one here. And I'm using a cleaver, which you can see is pretty versatile in terms of it's just not the sharp edge, but I can use the side of that blade to bruise things, to get things off. So let's do this, and here's what we'll do is we will just nail that. And of course that immediately releases a lot of the oils, and I can smell that. And I'm just going to use this cleaver here to mince it up. There we go, we'll get rid of that. There. And then we'll just put that over here aside. And we've got one more thing that we'll use is the fresh ginger. And the ginger, you can get that fresh right in the grocery stores nowadays. I'm just going to cut this dry end off. And I'm going to cut maybe a 1/4 inch coin right off there, and the grain or the strings are very short. I've cut it like that across the grain, which is going to allow me, when I hit this, it's just going to basically flatten out and separate those grains. So we'll just hit it like that, and you can kind of see what's happened here is that the grain has separated. Again, those juices have all come out, and I'll use my nice sharp cleaver to mince that up. So it's kind of a mix of mince and smash, which is great. So there's our aromatics. So those will be the first things that go into our oil when the time comes. After that, we'll be putting in our chicken, because we want our chicken to cook. And then we're also going to be using carrots. And your carrot, you want to use that at the same time as the chicken, because you want the carrots to soften up a little bit. And what I'm going to do is something called a roll cut, which allows you to control the size of the carrot by the angle and the distance that you move down. So you'll see there's the size of the carrots from the fat end, but as I move down and the carrot gets thinner, what I can do is I can simply go further down, and so the size will be more consistent. The other thing that happens with the roll cut is you have a lot more surfaces that are exposed to the heat, so the carrot will cook more evenly and more quickly. So we'll put that aside. Onion. So the yellow and white onions tend to be a stronger flavor, and if you for the same amount of time that you're cooking, if you would like a milder onion, certainly the Vidalia onions are very mild. Another mild onion are the red onions, and so you could use a red onion as well. And what we'll do here is we'll just quarter. This is I'd call this a medium onion. I like to cut things up in what I call chopstick size, since I tend to eat with chopsticks. There we go. But you could, if you wanted to, you could julienne these just by going right across it. So that would be good. So the onions are ready. A nice red pepper. Red peppers and green peppers, the bell peppers, they're the same pepper. The red peppers have just been allowed to ripen. And the red peppers actually have a sweeter flavor than the green peppers. So if you like your peppers to be sweeter, use the red peppers. All right, so what I do is I just cut it in half. I take that stem part out, and then what I'll do is I'll just julienne these. And if you do it from the inside, it won't matter with a really sharp knife, but if your knife isn't really up to par, cutting it from the inside will keep it from slipping, because of that waxy exterior can sometimes be a little bit tricky if your knife isn't super sharp. But you do want to have a super sharp knife because they will cut where you want them to cut. And this will be our garnish. And we're going to use the whole scallion. There we go. Okay. And for those of you that are interested, the white part of the scallion has a stronger oniony flavor, and the green part of the scallion is milder. So if you want a really robust scallion, use the white part. If you want a little milder, you can use that green part. We're going to use both. All right. So I am ready to stir fry. So let's crank this up. So you want hot wok, cool oil. So we're going to be heating this up. Here's our avocado oil. We're not going to add that right away. So ideally, you want that flame to be in direct contact with your wok. If you have an electric stove, you're definitely going to want either a flat-bottomed wok or a cast iron wok, which is flat on the outside but rounded on the inside. If you have a gas cooktop, everything will work because that gas will stay in contact. Now, if you have a non-stick wok, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start that heating up, but you're not going to want to let it get super hot before you put the oil in. Because if it gets up over 500 degrees, what's going to happen is it's going to burn off the non-stick. This is a Helen Chen wok. It has a non-stick surface, so this feels like it's maybe 300 degrees or so. I can kind of feel that. Could use one of those guns. But here's our avocado oil. I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons right in there. Doesn't take a lot of oil, and I'll just kind of swish that around in there. All right, so that oil is going to protect the non-stick surface, and but I'm going to keep this on high heat so you don't cool the wok down. The way you control the temperature of the cooking is by putting things into the wok. So let's get started here. I said the aromatics first, so here's the aromatics. I'm going to put those right in. You can see my wok is starting to smoke, which is great. All right, we're going to give those a quick stir, and literally 5 seconds. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put in our carrots because we want those to cook up. The garlic has already started to brown. So now what's happened is because I put my carrots in, that's going to start to cool things down a little bit. It's going to keep the garlic from burning, but it's still going to caramelize it. All right, my chicken, here we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the chicken in, but I'm not going to put the juice in. So I'm draining the chicken. Here we go. We'll put that in. It's a dry process at this point. All right. So stir fry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread this out in a thin layer on the bottom of the wok. All right, and that's super hot now. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to put in are the onions so that they can soften up a little bit. And so the onions, they're going to give off a little bit of moisture. Again, as I said, it's still a dry process. And the moisture is going to be given off by the ingredients that I'm stir frying. That sizzling sound that you hear is exactly what you want to maintain as you're stir frying. If I put in something really wet, or I put in too much of something, and that sizzling stops, that means I've overloaded the wok. And the stir frying process will actually stop. All right. So believe it or not, the chicken is almost done. And my carrots have started to caramelize a little bit. I'll pull one out. You can kind of see it started to brown around those edges. All right. And the onions, their layers have started to come apart, which is exactly what we want, but we don't want them to be soggy. All right. So our last vegetable will be our peppers. Now the peppers have the most moisture. So they'll start to, as they give up their moisture, they're going to start to kind of calm things down. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get that oil that I put in, I want it to kind of touch. That hot oil needs to touch everything. There we go. Just in a minute or so. And then we're going to put in our liquid. And remember, there's cornstarch in this, so this is going to make a glaze. So here we go. So once I've put that in, that stops the stir frying process. All right, that sizzling, that loud sizzling has ended. Still pretty hot in there. The chicken is definitely done. And I'm going to turn this down. There we go. And let's put in our scallions. What I like to do with the scallions is I give them a squeeze, and that distributes the flavor right into the dish, because I'm not actually stir frying the scallions. They're more like a garnish. There we go. Shut that off. And I think I've been talking for about 15 minutes or so since the rice started boiling. So let's take a look at our rice. There's our rice. Ready for us. So let's take some jasmine rice. Ooh, this is going to be tasty, I think. So here's our chicken. I guess I could have used a bigger bowl, huh? That's all right. Grab some onion. And you can add, obviously other vegetables. Just remember that the order of the vegetables that you put in would be dictated by how long those vegetables need to cook. So let's try this. And there's enough for us.
I thought you were making that for me, Chris.
Oh, well, I don't want you to burn yourself.
Okay.
So here we go. Here's our chicken. All 5 flavors are there. Rice is good. So there you have it. 5 seasons or 5 spice chicken from our stir fry cookbook for beginners. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.